My daughter was a saint. During our divorce proceedings in court, she'd volunteered to stay with me, refusing child support from her father. If I live with Mom, Dad will be so sad. How could I take his money too? She declared. So I worked 3 jobs a day to support her. To flaunt her goodness, she took my medical savings and used them to sponsor impoverished students. When I questioned her, she said, "Teenagers are the future. Mom, you're old and spending money on your illness is a waste." As a result, I grew gravely ill and became paralyzed. She pitied a beggar who couldn't find a wife, so she gave me to the beggar. I eventually died from his abuse. Then I woke up back at the divorce hearing. She was once again saying she wanted to stay with me and refused child support. I immediately interrupted her. "Your dad is so pitiful, you should live with him instead." I had been reborn on the very day of my divorce, and seeing my tearful daughter in court, the horrific scene of my last death flashed in my mind again. I was shaking with rage, and then I heard my daughter's voice. "I want to live with Mom. If I stay with Mom, Dad will be so sad. How can we take his child support?" My hands clenched tightly at my sides. In my previous life, it was her self-proclaimed saintly heart that drove me to work 3 jobs, turning my hair white at such a young age, and almost killing me from overwork. And yet, she had taken all the money I had earned with my life and given it to impoverished students, looking completely innocent while doing so. Mom were well-fed and well-clothed now. These kids are the future pillars of our country. Can you really bear to watch them live in poverty? You need to have some compassion. Okay, compassion is it. I looked at my daughter, a pure white lotus in the guise of a martyr. I reached out, grasped her shoulder and pushed her towards her father. "Since your father is so pitiful, you should live with him instead." While my daughter stared at me in disbelief, I even pretended to wipe away a tear, sobbing softly. "My sweet child, don't blame Mom for being so cruel. I was just laid off from my job, and I can barely support myself. If you come with me, you will surely suffer." Sophia looked clearly hesitant, but still walked 2 steps towards me. "Mom, do you really not want me anymore?" While it looked like a loving moment between mother and daughter, I knew perfectly well that her father, Ethan, was so busy with work, that he had barely been home, and that he even had his own new family outside, which is why I was so determined to get a divorce. If Sophia went with him, although she would be more financially secure, her stepmother and stepbrother wouldn't treat her well. Seeing her hesitation, I sobbed louder. "Sophia, Mom doesn't want to leave you either. How about we go back to our village in the countryside? Your grandma has a piece of land there, and we can grow some vegetables ourselves enough to survive." Hearing that she would be living such a hard life, Sophia's expression immediately changed. Without turning back, she walked over to Ethan. "Mom, remember to come see me often. I'll miss you." I nodded sadly, but in my heart, I couldn't be happier. She put on a show of being so considerate, but in the face of personal gain, she was as selfish as they come. But I didn't expect that Sophia, while packing, took the opportunity when I wasn't home and gave everything in the house to the beggars on the street. When I got home, I saw my front door wide open. A man, disheveled and dirty, was walking out with my purple floral patterned bedding. Peeking inside, I saw that most of the furniture had been moved out. "Stop! Who are you? What do you think you're doing?" The man turned around. When I saw his face, I was shocked. It was the same beggar who had abused me to death in my previous life. The beggar with the dirty face leered at me and said he was there to collect unwanted junk at the request of the owner of the house. My unwanted junk? The biggest piece of garbage I know is Sophia. I scoffed and called the police. Soon I met Sophia at the police station. Her innocent eyes looked at me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I thought you were going back to the countryside soon, and we couldn't take all that stuff with us. I just wanted to give them to the people who need them most. I was just trying to be kind." The police shook their heads. "It was just a misunderstanding. Sign here and you can go." But I refused to let it go. "Who says it was a misunderstanding? Officer, although Sophia is my daughter, she has been awarded to my husband, and the property title is only under my name. Now my house has been raided by strangers, and so much of my property has been lost. We can't just let it end with a misunderstanding." The police officer closed the record book. Then what do you want to do? What could I do? Of course it was to pay me back at market price. The beggar had no money? No problem. I could just find the instigator. Sophia was not of age? No problem. Her guardian Ethan surely has money. And it just so happened that I kept the receipt for all the furniture and items. They would be paying it all back at original price. Under police supervision, Ethan paid me $40,000 with a dark face and shot Sophia a murderous glare. I'll deal with you when we get home. Looking at Sophia's aggrieved face, I pretended to be calm. She probably didn't know that Ethan, despite looking like a gentleman, had very violent tendencies. In my previous life, I saw with my own eyes that he even beat his illegitimate child to the point of needing stitches in the hospital. Sophia had barely started living with him and had already made him cough up money. How could she have a good future? And her stepmother wasn't any better. In my past life, enraged by her son's beating, she tried to kill Ethan, even throwing acid on him at his company. An abusive father, a troublemaking stepbrother, and a selfish stepmother. Sophia was doomed to fail. When we parted ways outside the police station, I couldn't help but add fuel to the fire in front of Ethan, who was clearly furious. I know that you are busy with work and travel often, but no matter what, your daughter is now living. With you, I hope you can take care of her. Our daughter is very kind and compassionate. She spends so long comforting even stray animals on the street. Now that she can live a good life with you and pursue her hobbies, I am relieved. Before Ethan could reply, I turned and left. As I got into my car, I saw Ethan angrily walk up to Sophia, grab her by her collar, and shove her into his car. I wasn't idle either. I quickly hired an agent to sell my house. When I divorced Ethan, I got a total of $1,370,000, plus the house. Of course, Ethan agreed to the property settlement so easily because I had evidence of his domestic abuse. If I had released it, not only would he have lost his job, he would have lost so much more. I agreed to keep it a secret for my good daughter. I used all the money to buy a large flat in the suburbs, a place of about 300 square meters. Because it was so remote, house prices had plummeted and nobody wanted to buy. The seller even gave away extra square footage, as if they were afraid I would back out of the deal. But I remembered from my previous life this area would be demolished after a year, and the bigger the land, the bigger the compensation. After that, I waved my hand, packed a bag and went back to the village in my hometown. Remembering what I did in my previous life, I invested in a few stocks and sat back and waited for them to increase. But before I could enjoy my new life, I received a call from Sophia. She was crying and begging me to take her away. Dad beats me. He's so scary when he's drunk. Mom, please. If you don't come and get me, he's going to beat me to death. I idly tapped my fingers on the table and said with false concern, Sophia, don't cry. What happened? Why would your dad hit you? Isn't there some misunderstanding? As I was talking, I suddenly heard a woman's voice on the other end of the phone. You little brat, you dare to call to complain? I don't think you've had enough beating yet. Before the phone disconnected, I heard Sophia's desperate cry for help. I leisurely hung up the phone. Because I almost died during childbirth, I have always loved Sophia, thinking that I would give her all the good things in the world. That's why I spoiled her so much, and I ultimately suffered the consequences. This time she should get beaten a few more times. But 3 days later I still went to the hospital. Seeing the cast on Sophia's arm, and the fading bruises on her face, I felt only glee in my heart. Seeing me, she immediately fell to her knees begging me to take her away, even if it meant living in the wilderness with me. I patiently adjusted her hair. Silly child, what are you saying? Your dad probably just had too much to drink and acted rashly. But in his heart he surely loves you. As soon as I finished talking, Ethan appeared behind us. His face was gloomy as he told me to take her away. He would send me child support every month. That's when I realized Sophia is truly unable to change. She took the expensive seafood her stepmother had bought and fed them to stray animals, which ended up injuring the animals due to their cold property, and the Animal Protection Association came knocking for compensation. Also, Ethan's illegitimate son had thrown a tantrum because he didn't get to eat the seafood. Ethan not only had to pay money, but he also got a splitting headache from his son's cries. He took out all his anger on Sophia. Finally, I negotiated a monthly child support of $3,000 with Ethan, and also rental costs. Only then did I reluctantly agree to take her away. As soon as we got home, Sophia proposed to sponsor impoverished students. She tugged at my sleeve, her eyes looking pitiful. "Mom, can you really bear to see those kids not being able to go to school because they have no money? What did they do wrong? Dad gives us $3,000 of child support every month. It's more than enough." I smiled. "Okay, I'll call the principal of the impoverished school later." I knew exactly what she was thinking. She said teenagers are the future of the country. But she really just wanted to sponsor her little lover. She probably didn't know that he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. But this time I was going to let her watch with her own eyes what it felt like to be betrayed by those that she sponsored. Soon, according to Sophia's wishes, we selected an impoverished student. According to the principal, the boy had excellent academic scores, and he was likely to get into a good university, but because his family was poor, they had asked him to drop out of school to work. Now with our help he could finally study properly. From beginning to end, the boy kept his head down and didn't say a word, not even a thank you. I wasn't surprised, and Sophia took the boy's hand and walked outside. "Mom, I want to talk to him alone for a moment. You can chat with the principal first." Looking at the two figures walking outside, and their entwined hands, a subtle smile crept onto my lips. Sophia didn't return until much later. I pointed at the red marks on her neck and asked in feigned shock, "Sophia, what happened? It looks like something bit you." She looked panicked and covered her neck. "Maybe it was a mosquito. Mom, let's go home. I'm hungry." "Where is little Xavier? Didn't he come back with you?" I looked around behind her. Sophia, as if afraid that I would catch on to something, quickly pulled me outside. "He said he had a lot of homework, so he went home first. He's a bit shy, but he said he will definitely get into a good university to repay us." I nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Back home I pulled out stale bread and salted pickles. With Sophia looking constipated, I explained calmly, "Your father only gives $3,000 for child support every month. After deducting the $1,000 for sponsorship and other expenses, we can only live a simple life." Seeing that Sophia did not touch the food, I put down my chopsticks and lowered my head. "Sophia, it's all Mom's fault, for making you suffer with me. Otherwise you should just go back to your father's place." Perhaps she was truly scared of being beaten. So Sophia shook her head again and started munching on her bread. Meanwhile, I left under the guise of looking for a job, but went straight to the KFC across the street. I can't let myself suffer, even if my child has to. As time passed, soon it was time for the college entrance exams. In this period I lied about working in a factory. I had Sophia move into the school dorms, and I was living a lavish lifestyle in my mansion with my stock gains. I only picked Sophia home every weekend to eat stale bread and salted pickles. Because I also gave her very little allowance, Sophia lost about 10 pounds in a month. But even then she didn't stop. Every time I saw her, she would tell me with a martyr-like attitude about the pitiful stray animals near the school. Countless similar incidents occurred. Though in my heart I thought, mind your own business, I would always smile on my face. "Honey, if you keep buying food for them, you won't have enough money for yourself. Mom is useless. She found a heartless factory, and they still haven't paid me." In the end, Sophia stopped talking. The week before the college entrance exams, Sophia said that she wanted to concentrate on her studies and wouldn't go home. But I knew that it wasn't that simple because she was pregnant. This had happened in my past life too. On the day of the great announcement, she suddenly threw up. When I asked her about it, she finally said that it was Xavier's child, and threatened to kill herself if I didn't agree to let them be together. Back then I had tried to talk some sense into her. I had even locked her at home in an attempt to completely cut off her contact with Xavier. But what had that achieved? This time I would put everything back on track. But, even faster than Sophia's pregnancy sickness, was the news that Xavier had scored over 700 points on the college entrance exams, making him a major contender for 2 of the top universities. While I was stunned, Sophia next to me suddenly dry heaved, but now I had no time to pay attention to that. This shouldn't be happening. Although Xavier's scores used to be excellent, even if he performed exceptionally well, he would have only made the cutoff score for the first-tier universities. And since he had spent all his time fooling around with Sophia, his mock exam scores had been steadily declining. It was impossible for him to get such a high score. I calmed myself and stared at Sophia. She immediately lowered her head, looking guilty. "What's going on? Be honest with me, are you pregnant?" Sophia seemed to not want to hide it anymore, so she nodded. Her eyes looked excited. "Mom, Xavier and I love each other. And now he's going to a prestigious university. You don't have to worry." I almost blurted out that his score is suspicious, but I held back. Before I could understand the situation, I could not reveal myself. Right now, as a mother, I looked at Sophia's flat stomach and said, "You've only just become an adult. You're not going to be going to university with a big belly, are you? I'll book you an abortion." "No." As soon as the words left my mouth, Sophia grabbed a fruit knife on the table and held it to her neck. "Even if this child came at the wrong time, it is still a life. Are you really going to watch this life disappear?" "No. Xavier has already promised me that he is now a student at a prestigious university. He can negotiate with his university to bring me along. After graduation, he will surely earn money to take care of me and the baby." I scoffed. I was not worried at all. Sophia was just holding the knife to threaten me. Besides, no one knew Xavier better than I did. Earn money and take care of them? He was nothing more than a black hole disguised as a human. "Okay, since you've already decided that you want to keep the baby, then there's no point for me to stop you. Sophia, you're now an adult, so you should move out from here. I wish you and Xavier happiness." I had been waiting for Sophia to turn 18, because when she was a minor, any of her actions would lead back to her guardian. But it is different now. After placating Sophia, I went online to search and found out that the top scorer was indeed Xavier. But how could this be? I checked many news headlines. Because of the privacy of the students, the media spoke vaguely and did not reveal any real information. Actually, it was not impossible for two people to have the same name, so I called Xavier's school and confirmed with his teacher once again. They said that their school did not have a top scorer, and very few people even scored above 600 points. And among all the students, there was no one named Xavier. After getting the confirmation, I laughed. As expected, I didn't puncture Sophia's dream of attending the top university, and instead silently packed her belongings and directly handed her to Xavier. But before summer had even ended, Sophia came to my door again, kneeling on the ground and begging for money. When I refused, she said that I had to give her a dowry. Actually, Xavier didn't even get into that top university. He lied to me. His score wasn't even as good as mine. He can't even get into junior college. He said that he was going to work to earn money, but he is just sleeping around with other women, and when he gets drunk he comes home and beats me. I looked coldly at the marks on her exposed skin. "And yet, you still want to be with Xavier?" Sophia cried. "But no matter what, he's still the father of my child. What will happen to my child if I leave him? Besides, I believe that Xavier is only with other women to earn money. He's already having such a hard time for my sake. How can I leave him at this time?" I was speechless. No matter what Sophia said, my answer was always the same. No money. When I got annoyed with the constant requests, I would bring up Ethan. "It's such a big thing for a daughter to get married. How can you not tell your father? Besides, you were awarded to your father by the court." Sophia would immediately become silent. The beating she had received must have scarred her. Then I would pick up the phone to call Ethan and ask him to come back from his business trip overseas. Ethan would speak coldly. "She's still at the age where she should be at school. Why is she even thinking about romance and marriage? She's asking to die." After hanging up the phone, I would shrug at Sophia. Seeing that she wasn't going to get any money from me, she left dejectedly. What I didn't expect was that Sophia, upon not receiving any money, started to spread rumors about me all over the neighborhood. She said I was a cruel mother trying to break up a couple. She said I abused her, and that was why her body was covered in bruises. So while I was sitting at home minding my own business, some people came to my door cursing at me. From their hateful comments, I finally understood what had happened. So I cut off Sophia's allowance and moved out in the middle of the night. I only rented the house for the show, so now that this place wasn't good for me, there was no point in staying. I went straight back to my big flat. As soon as I walked through the door, I received a notification from the government saying that they would be building a large hydroelectric plant near here, and the area would be demolished. I counted with my fingers. If I received demolition compensation, it would be about $80 million. Combined with my stock holdings, I could be considered a multimillionaire. After finding out that I had moved, Sophia looked for Ethan again. But because her father wasn't home, her stepmother kicked her out. And her mischievous stepbrother poured a bucket of dirty water all over her. So she started a live stream in front of the house. She looked like she was crying her eyes out on screen, and soon became one of the most talked about topics on local social media. I just happened to come across her stream. My parents divorced. My father has a new family and they don't like me. My mother even ran off with all the money. If they don't love me, why did they even give birth to me? Why are they doing this to me? I've already been so good. Is it true that the only way people will feel better is when I'm dead? I quietly watched the scene in the video, and my heart felt nothing. Sophia was always like this. With just a few tears and words, she would grab everyone's attention, and everyone would think that she was a victim. But people didn't know what kind of darkness lurked beneath the mask of her fake kindness. In the end, she was just selfish. Then Ethan appeared on the screen. He went up and kicked Sophia to the ground. Then he threw his briefcase and started to slap her. You really have a big ego, huh, to come here and spread lies. You really are asking for death. Soon, the live stream was filled with the man's screams and the woman's cries. I leisurely changed into my shoes to go downstairs to throw out the garbage. As I was coming back, the security guard stopped me. Hey, aren't you the mother of that Sophia? I was watching the video just now. It's you for sure. You look exactly like the woman in the photo. So you abandoned your daughter to live in luxury here. The security guard grabbed my arm and wouldn't let me leave, all while posting in the live stream. Hey streamer, I found your mom. She's hiding in the Xiangjiang Villa area. I've caught her. I angrily pulled my arm away but could not shake him off. Stop your slandering. I did not abandon her. Let me go right now or I'm calling the police. Because he was a young and strong man, I could not match his strength. I could only attempt to threaten him, but the man did not fall for it and laughed while gripping my arm even harder. Call the police? Go ahead. You think I'm scared? Even if the police come, they'll arrest scum like you. Of course, I didn't call the police. Maybe it was because I looked too menacing, but the security guard finally let me go while cursing at me. He threatened to beat me every time he saw me. I didn't take it to heart. When I got home, the live stream had already ended, but the trending news still had screenshots of the video. It was then that I found out that after Ethan had started beating Sophia, one of the viewers could not watch anymore and called the police. The police not only took them both to the station, but they called me as well. Of course I had to go. The police are now the only people who can return my innocence. At the police station, Sophia was huddled in a corner, her face bruised and swollen. Meanwhile, Ethan had calmed down a lot and was explaining that what happened in the live stream wasn't how she described it. We were divorced. That's correct, but we had agreed to take care of her. She ran off with another man and even got pregnant. When we disagreed with her decision, she started spreading lies on the internet. You can ask our neighbors or her teachers if I'm not telling the truth. This time, I unexpectedly stood on the same side as Ethan. Officer, my daughter is an underage pregnant minor, and she has been staying out overnight repeatedly. Can I suspect that someone has seduced her and caused her to commit a crime? My Sophia has always been kind and considerate, but now someone has led her astray, and her scores are terrible. Shouldn't we be looking into who is responsible for that? My logic was clear, and the police immediately called in Xavier. He seemed to have just come from a nightclub. He smelled of alcohol, and his body was filled with all sorts of women's perfumes. Mixed together, it was extremely disgusting. It had only been a few months since we last saw each other, and he no longer had the shy attitude he had when we first met. He instead now looked like a fly, annoying and disgusting. As soon as he heard that he would be held responsible, Xavier instantly sobered up. He shook his hands repeatedly. Officer, this matter has nothing to do with me. Why are you saying that the child in her stomach is mine? Besides, it takes two to tango. She was the one who was trying to seduce me. After the college entrance exam, I asked for a breakup. Now I'm living my life. Don't try to kidnap me with a child from who knows where." Sophia was shocked and widened her eyes. She rushed up and grabbed Xavier's collar. "What did you say? Is that even human language? Xavier, you are the only one I've been with. If the child in my stomach isn't yours, then whose is it?" But Xavier showed no mercy and pushed her to the ground. He got up and wiped his collar in disgust. "A woman who is as casual as you. Who knows how many men you've been with besides me? And you want to pin this on me? Give me a break." Xavier's sudden change of face was the last straw for Sophia. She sat on the floor in a daze. Of course I had to take advantage of the situation and put on a great show. "Xavier, you are an animal. We were kind to sponsor you, but you repaid our kindness with evil. You made my daughter pregnant, and you even made up lies trying to destroy her name. Do you even have a conscience?" Xavier just smiled. "Ma'am, please get this straight. It was clearly your daughter that was bothering me. I haven't even called the police to report her for harassment. So, you think that you are so great because you have some money." Upon seeing this, I laughed in triumph and reached my hand out to him. "If that's the case, then return the money. I've sponsored you for half a year, which is $60,000, plus the $2,000 you asked for before the college entrance exams as fees for materials, which is a total of $80,000. Will it be cash or card?" As soon as I said that, Xavier's expression changed immediately. His voice even rose a few octaves. "Return what money? You voluntarily sponsored me. Why do I have to return that to you?" I pulled out the contract that I had prepared long ago from my bag and threw it onto Xavier's face. "You signed this contract yourself. Didn't you even read it properly?" When I chose to sponsor Xavier, I prepared an extra condition. That is, Xavier's score on the college entrance exam had to be above 600. Otherwise, he had to return all the sponsorship money during the period, and it had to be paid off completely within 2 years after the conditions took effect. Back then, even the principal had assured me that Xavier's grades were excellent, and that he would absolutely meet my requirements. It seemed like Xavier didn't even read the contract properly, so now that he knew about this condition, he immediately panicked and tore up the contract and screamed at me. "That's impossible, this contract is fake. You are a sly woman. You created a trap and just waited for me to fall in. Right? Anyway, this was just a backup contract. Even if I tore one, there were still thousands more." I was too lazy to argue about these pointless things with Xavier, so I just turned to the police next to me and asked how this should be handled. The police didn't seem to expect me to have done this, but because he had signed the contract, what else could they do? Of course he would have to return the money. Xavier had been exposed by the school for his lies of using the same name as the top scorer, and he would have to return the money. When I came out of the police station, Ethan stopped me from behind. "So you knew all of this was going to happen, right? Then why didn't you tell me?" I didn't show him any respect. "Would it make any difference if I told you? You don't care about Sophia anyway. Whatever I do is my own business, and has nothing to do with you. You should focus on living your own life." After all, soon he would be beaten by his wife for beating his own son, and she would throw acid on him at his company. I had no plans of warning him. I picked up my bag and left. I knew that this was not over, but I didn't expect that Sophia would come knocking on my door so soon. And this time she even came with Xavier. Maybe she saw my home address when she was at the police station, and then also found out about the demolition. I really admired Sophia's guts. Xavier had already said such harsh things at the police station, but they were still able to let go of their grievances and come to my door and ask for my blessing to get married. Of course, in the end, it was all just to say that I was rich now, and that as a mother I should at least give a dowry, and as a grandmother I should give them some money. I watched the two people in front of me with my arms crossed. "Xavier, didn't you say before that the child was from a random stranger? Why are you so quick to decide to become the father?" Even if Xavier knew that I was making fun of him, he didn't dare to say a word. I was drunk, and I didn't think about the words that came out of my mouth. Now I am very clear-headed. Over the past few days I've properly reflected on my actions, and I realized that I still had deep feelings for Sophia. Everything that happened before was my fault. You can beat me or scold me. But Sophia's pregnant now and we are still very young. We have issues taking care of ourselves, let alone raising a child. I scoffed. Actually, there is a very good solution. Why not get an abortion now that it's not too late? Then you guys can start over. People who cannot even take care of themselves should not be bringing a child into this world. In the end, you just don't want to give us money. You have so much money. Why can't you give us a bit of it? Am I not your daughter? After you die, all that money is going to be mine anyway. That is when Sophia, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly yelled at me. She rushed up and grabbed my arm, and I frowned as I stepped backwards. But I could clearly feel that Sophia was pulling me towards the stairs. A feeling of foreboding rose in my heart. But before the feeling could take shape, Sophia suddenly let go of my arm and fell down the stairs. Ah! Xavier quickly ran over to help her up and looked at me, full of heartache. Auntie, no matter what, Sophia is still your daughter. How could you be so cruel? I opened my mouth, then immediately understood that they had set a trap for me. The next second, Xavier yelled out again, his palm covered in fresh blood. Looking at Sophia's white dress dyed red, I knew. At the hospital, Sophia's child had been miscarried. Meanwhile, a camera that was hidden by Xavier captured everything and uploaded it online. I became a cold-hearted and cruel mother who tried to break up couples. Many people went to the government website to complain, saying that someone like me didn't deserve to receive any compensation from the demolition. I looked at Sophia, pale and lying in the hospital bed. I said coldly, "So this is what you had planned all along, isn't it? I didn't think that you would be able to plot against me like this." Sophia smirked. "Mom, you can't blame me. You have over $100 million in assets, but you wouldn't even share any of it. You even forced Xavier into a dead end for a mere $80,000. We didn't have a choice. We even kneeled down and begged you earlier. But why didn't you give us anything?" I laughed. "So, how are you so sure that I don't have any evidence?" Instantly, I watched the confidence on Sophia's face crumble, and even her voice was shaking. "What do you mean?" Then the lawyer walked in with the police. "Miss Sophia, we suspect that you and Xavier have been conspiring for fraud, and also spreading rumors online. We have all the evidence, and I am here to verify the situation under instructions." "That's impossible. There are no cameras in that building. Where did you get your evidence from?" Looking at Sophia's disbelieving look, I didn't want to explain. I instead left the lawyer to negotiate, but in reality, it was just informing her of the consequences. After all, when I bought this house, I had a premonition and purposely had someone install hidden cameras in the hidden locations. All the things that had happened during the day had been captured by the 360-degree cameras. It was clear on tape that Sophia had let go of her own arm and fell down the stairs by herself. Also, the security guard that had misunderstood me was patrolling and heard Sophia and Xavier's plans. But he didn't have time to inform me. He also witnessed everything that had happened just now, and naturally became a witness. In court, Xavier pushed all the responsibility onto Sophia, and said that she was the one who had wanted to collaborate, and that she was the one who said that she would be able to write off the $80,000. Sophia, already weak from losing her child, flew into a rage as she heard what Xavier had said, and they started fighting. By the time they separated, both of their faces were bruised. But what could they do? Those who had committed a crime would be punished, and Xavier would have to return all the money that he owed me. I cut off all ties with Sophia in court, and left without looking back. Now the truth had been revealed. The people who had misunderstood me before apologized in my comment section. I didn't respond to any of them. I just accepted the compensation from the demolition and happily went around the world.